I'm JC Robertson. I play a lot of Hypixel Skyblock, specifically Iron Man. And a couple of months ago, I dropped the shiny Relic, the rarest drop in the game. Overall, I obtained it through what was really a strange series of events. I grind Iron Man quite a bit, and on Iron Man, you only have one real chance to get items, because if it's an event specifically like the shiny pigs, as soon as they're gone, they might be gone forever. And while we know special mayors eventually come back, I don't want to have to wait for a ton of time for Dante to come back, especially when we now know Dante won't be. So it was right to grind tons of them, but I might have grinded them a little bit too hard. I was consistently grinding them because I wanted the potato talisman. It was the drop that I saw that was immediately catching my eye. I like farming, and so all the nice Harvesting 6, Farming for Dummies books, those were cool, and I'd grind enough of them. But those potato talismans seemed great, because a one more talisman is one more talisman that I might never be able to get again. We know that everyone ended up obtaining potato talisman if they were there at that time, but Iron Man wasn't a game mode when potato talismans were around, and so because of that, it was effectively impossible to legitimately gain any potato talismans. It was a new talisman for Iron Man, and I wanted that, and I had a 5-player co-op on Iron Man. And one active player that I was playing with, our Dragon, really nice guy, and 3 more inactive players in the co-op, but they ended up helping out. I consistently started grinding them immediately, and so did our Dragon. And when we were both grinding them, the day they were released, immediately after the Dante boss fight and Techno being installed as mayor, we started hearing rumors about everything, and I just went at it. And we started making money from it. We got potatoes, we got hot potato books, we got all the drops from it, and we just kept getting more drops. We didn't drop any potato talismans, and we were so worried that after 5 days, Techno wouldn't be mayor anymore, and then we'd have no talismans and couldn't show for it. We'd have one less talisman than tons of other Iron Mans that were luckier than us. And so we just continued grinding. Our Dragon couldn't grind as long as me, but at that point I had been grinding like around 22 hours a day. I was on a sleep cycle called the Uberman sleep cycle, which left me effectively 2 hours to sleep, and I continued at it for days. As soon as we assumed Techno would be moved away, and after the 5 days, he ended up being automatically re-elected, so we had another 5 days of chances at least if he wasn't re-elected more. As soon as we saw the mayor would end up actually going away, and the actual mayor flock, that's when we knew that this could be bad, because if shiny pigs go away as soon as Techno was moved out of the mayor, then that was all we could do. We had 10 days of Techno played, and we might have wasted all of them because we just weren't lucky enough to actually get the talismans. We were grinding tons of them. The shiny Relic was this idea that, yeah, sure, maybe we drop it, but it seemed to be a trophy item. A couple people had dropped it at that point. Originally, we didn't even know what it was. We still weren't sure what the Ancient Pig was. And we assumed that we just wouldn't get the 7 in time, because Technoblade was going to leave before then. We'd only gotten like 2 at that point. We later got a 3rd. It was a little strange. I had not slept in 85 hours nearing the end. I had not eaten in the end for like 19 hours. It was just pain. Being on a co-op ended up helping out more than I initially expected. For most Iron Man players, they would have noticed really early on, as we did, that you can only buy 640 per day. The rest of the shiny orbs you had to either buy off the auction house or get them from other players. But being on a co-op, especially with inactive players, meant that all we had to do was ask those inactive players to give us their orbs, and suddenly we had access to 50 stacks of orbs a day, and we bought them even when we couldn't grind them all. And we started storing so many orbs until eventually I got so much faster at it, which I did with some interesting methods. I grinded loads of shiny orbs. I made sure that every single thing I could do, I did the best that I could. I kept not getting that talisman. I just wanted one at a certain point. I just wanted to get more from my co-op members so that we could all have them and say that we have a full 5-player co-op with all potato talismans. But it was becoming more of a fever dream. We saw the deadline, and as much as I wanted to grind more, as much as I wanted to grind those 50 stacks a day, it was a lot of work, and I eventually started doing it. I started grinding that many a day. It was a ton. I could not maintain that rate, and I thought I was going to faint. The moment that the last day of Technoblade was there, and there was like 6 hours left on the clock, and we still hadn't gotten a single talisman, I was just like ashamed. because it didn't matter how much work I was doing, I wasn't getting my goal. And there had only been 3 relics found. There was no actual chance that we get the ancient pig. Like, this event would have been useless. No one cared about the farming for dummies. We got way too many. We had way too many harvesting 6 books. We had double chests and double chests of all of these items. We just didn't care. All we wanted was the talismans, and we weren't getting it. In the end, our dragon, nearing, I think the 4th hour till Technoblade was gone, got a talisman, and so at least we had one we could show for it. But it still hurt, because as much as I had grinded, I wasn't getting it, and I was out of my mind at this point. 85 hours of being awake grinding shiny pigs is torture, and I would not do it again unless there was a gun to my head. 3 hours before the mayor at least ended, I dropped a shiny relic, and it just said in chat, "You got a shiny relic." It was like a normal magic find thing, just didn't say magic find. It was almost entirely uninteresting. I didn't get any items either. I thought it was bugged. I thought I was delusional. I probably had dropped 3 or so shiny relics in my head at this point. And then I start getting messages. A few people in my guild say, "Oh my god, you got it." And then as soon as that happens, Mini Clune pops in my face. And I didn't know what's happening. I was aggressively hungry. Honestly, I felt like I was starving myself, and my brain at this point had just collapsed inwards, and I was seeing things. Mini Clune spawns in the relic for me, names it to me. It originally had Shiny Relic 1 on it, but it swapped pretty fast to Shiny Relic 4, so he had to put that in. And I got it all on recording, too. I was lucky enough to be able to record fast enough, and it was legitimately pretty sweet. I didn't really know how to feel about it at the time. Part of me assumed I was going to get it. I just knew, right? But obviously it's meant to be the super rare drop thing, so you're not meant to just be able to know, but it was a miraculous moment despite the fact that I didn't get what I wanted, I got something better. I couldn't use it, it wasn't something I could sell, it gave me no value on Iron Man. I didn't even have the talisman, no reforged stats, but it was sweet. And I get spammed messages, friend requests from tons of people, partied by YouTubers. It was kind of awesome for a little bit. I was a little bit of celebrity. 3 hours after, I start grinding shiny orbs again, and later on I go to sleep, and sleep for most of the rest of the day. I'm pretty sure I slept for over a full day after, or at least was in and out of bed, just unable to walk. I snacked hard, probably gained some pounds afterwards, and it wasn't the worst thing. We find out that after Technoblade ends, it didn't end the shiny pigs. Shiny pigs were continuing in lobbies, and people weren't sure if it was a bug or not. And then, no, we were told it was going to keep going until we had found all 7. Tons of people friend requested me. I had a ton more friends. I was invited to different guilds. Later joined one of the ones I was invited in. And the guild I was in started using me as advertisement to get more people in that guild. It was a whole ton of things, and I wasn't ready for it, but it didn't hurt. It was nice. What ended up happening with some of the other relics was also very interesting. The first one was found by a guy called Carton 7, and he was a non at the time. And people were saying that, oh, only nons are going to get it. There were rumors that he'd sold it off because APIs were off, no one could really check. There were a bunch of other things. He hadn't been online in some days afterward, and then another one comes out, and it's from an MVP Plus. Then people were saying, oh, it's just for random people who don't actually sweat the game. And then the third one is from a guy called the Blood Angel, and that dude is a sweat, another MVP plus. And then people talked about all sorts of things. Carton 7 was very interesting in the way that he ended up quitting the game and not selling it to anyone, actually, despite the rumors originally about him. Number 2 and number 3 both sell to the same player. What's interesting with all that is he ends up buying them for differing amounts and doesn't let people know what he's actually selling them for. He individually bargains with them. He did a very good job of doing it. When I ended up obtaining mine, the collector ended up actually talking to me as well, and I said I wasn't interested in selling it. I was an Iron Man player. Nothing that he could offer me for normal accounts would be important, and I wasn't willing to cheat to get items on my Iron Man, especially not if I had to transfer items off, even though that is technically allowed. So number 5 was found by Jimison, which was interesting because Jimison didn't end up actually selling to the collector. He ended up selling to another guy who then sold to the collector. So in the end, it still got there. And there ended up being some later drama where Jimison claimed that he never actually sold it and was only lending it out because the collector claimed it was for a YouTube video. Number 6 ends up being there. A person called Liz, and ends up being a pretty interesting player as well. They end up selling to the collector. And number 7 ends up being theirs and also sells to the collector. So at this point, the collector has 5 of them, doesn't have mine or Carton 7's. So number 1 and number 4 have not been bought by anyone. And it was relatively interesting that at that moment, while I expected a collector to message me or someone else eventually speaking, there were some rumors that there was some event going on, or that if all of them were collected by a player, something would happen. The collector ends up messaging me like a few days after they get all of them, and continued saying I wasn't interested in anything. There was no offer that would affect me. While some offers were relatively large from other players, him included, I didn't need it, and I knew that he wouldn't be getting the full collection anyway. He claimed I was like ruining his collection or something, and I understood that from some standpoint. Like, he wanted to get all of them, but Carton 7 had quit the game at that point. There was no way to access his, and so the collection was sort of ruined to begin with. At this point, the collector gets a little more aggressive with me, and I'll be honest, I don't entirely know what to do. It just wasn't something I was prepared for. I had my own drama. The guild I was in, the guild owner has some issues with the fact that I was getting a fair amount of fame from it. I'll be honest, I didn't really deserve the fame. I didn't expect to become famous from it. I had grinded a lot harder on other things and thought that those were more impressive. This is the one that got celebrated, and one of the inactive members of the co-op I was a part of with our dragon was that guild owner. I did what I could to actually, make sure to keep drama low. But one of the YouTubers that guild owner ended up really liking made a tweet about me. Doesn't matter much, but that apparently pushed the guild owner over the edge, and they attempted to get the other inactive members and our dragon to kick me from the co-op so they could have the shiny relic for themselves. Now, all of them immediately were concerned by this, and even though the guild owner attempted to threatened kicking them from the guild just fell apart instead, and all of them tell me about it and tried to back me up because none of them cared about the relic that much. I ended up getting worried though. I don't know entirely what's going to happen. As soon as I was told by our dragon that this was happening, I transferred it over to my main account. It was no longer the only relic on Iron Man, which I thought was a cool flex, but I will be willing to lose that flex if it meant that I at least still kept the item that I grinded for, and it would also make sure that there was no reason for me to get kicked from the co-op. I moved it over to my normal account. Around that time, the collector was getting more aggressive with me, noticed that it was on the normal account, noticed that I could trade it more easily, claimed that because of that, I should be more willing to do it and to trade it. It was the item I worked for. I didn't want to trade it for anything. It was difficult to try and shut someone down when I know that they care a lot about this. They ended up caring a lot more than I expected, though, when not that long after, the collector threatens to commit suicide over my relic. I don't know whether to take it as a joke or not, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of history where I think something's just a ha-ha funny and it ends up being a lot more serious. I don't know what to do. I don't know the collector that well at this point. I don't know people that do know him. I checked our mutual servers and see Skyblock Z, Cowshed, and Skyblock Extras. I check on Skyblock Extras, no one says they know anything about him. I check on Skyblock Z, same thing. On Cowshed, though, after about 5 minutes of me asking around places, saying that it was an emergency. I needed to know someone who knew him so that they could try and contact him, just to make sure he was okay. And I find a guy called Lil Dafty. Lil Dafty's actually a guy I kind of respect at this point a fair amount. He was urgent, he was fast, and he got me in contacts with the guild that at that point, the collector, he'd went offline. I don't know if he was still on Discord, but I knew he was not in the game, and apparently he left the guild he was in at the same time. Dafty ends up telling me this and tells me that he was in the guild that the collector was in, and as much as I assumed that things were just pretty intense, they were intense enough in my opinion at this point that people should be taking it more seriously. The guild just assumes that it's a distasteful joke. Dafty ends up contacting the collector, and they end up having a conversation about apparently how the collector thought I was being an idiot for even remotely believing him, saying that a few colorful words about that. When word gets back to the guild, Dafty shares that with the rest of us. The guild ends up getting very angry. The guild was a guild called Blobtopia. It was one for glitch item communities and learning different glitches and stuff of that nature, rare items as well. The collector at this point was a famous collector. He had the second largest museum for glitch items and one of the only players with a one-of-a-kind item in the entire game. They were famous for that. They had connections with tons of YouTubers and they had connections with other famous players in other aspects of the game. It was a lot. In the end, some of them end up finding out that he had been scamming people and bragging about it to other members of the guild, get their relics. Whether or not it's true, I don't know entirely, but I believe it after some of the members of the community were looking more into what he had done, and one of them ended up claiming that he had duplicated items. I couldn't entirely deal at the time with all the different things that happened. My guild was falling apart, and partially due to me, members of that guild were asking me to end up making a new guild and become the new guild leader. All at the same time, I had this guy who was threatening suicide and apparently scamming people to get relics. Mine, other than Carton7 who quit the game, was the only one this guy didn't already have. People said that the collector in that guild was actually a very well-respected player and very nice guy. Collector at that point had effectively no enemies except when it came to the relics. The relics, a lot more people ended up talking up against him, and some players actually took opposition with that statement. Some players had issues with him before that, and I didn't entirely know them. I didn't know the guild, but supposedly the collector had duplicated Doctor's space helmets. That was a rumor that one of them started, but they said that they could have evidence for it. The issue was, the collector was on the Discord that we were talking about this on. Apparently, they might have even had an alt on there, so even if we were in a channel that they couldn't see, they might be able to see it on one of their alt accounts. We were worried at that point that the collector would move items off. Even if we did have evidence of them duplicating items and they were to be wiped, they moved items off or duplicated the relics. That was it. That relic no longer became valuable. That relic became worthless, in the eyes of collectors at least. They were worried about mine being duplicated or people offering me money for it, so I claimed I could turn on my APIs constantly, never move it off of my wardrobe, put it as a head slot, and just have it always there, and I've done that ever since. The collector ended up making a mistake that, I'll be honest, I was more surprised by than any other part of the story. In other games, you can be banned for things that are a lot less than in Skyblock. And in one of those, it's build battle. Now, they're a guild, so they talk about things to each other. And one of the members of the guild said that if they need those items not be moved off, they could report him for making a phallic object in build battle. Dude built a penis. And because of that, he got reported for building a penis, got banned for 7 days for making inappropriate structures, and then at that point they did more research, figured out how to get him reported, admins did their investigation, and in those 7 days that he was banned, he then got wiped and banned for an extra year for duplicating items. At that point, the collector would no longer be able to scam anyone. People checked his Shiyu, and they saw that he had all 5 relics before he was wiped. At the same time, there was some worry, because at that point, another person was claiming to have one of the relics, one of the 5 that the collector also did. That player was Jimison, the 5th relic finder, and the person that claimed to have only ever borrowed it. At that point, many people were very suspicious. They had been able to see at the same time on 2 separate Shiyus, with a known duper being involved, that there were 2 number 5s. Currently, there is still Jimison's number 5 relic. And whether you choose to believe it or don't, most of the collectors don't believe that is the real relic, and believe that the collector duplicated it and gave it back as his way of claiming to have just borrowed it. We know that the collector can duplicate special items like Doctor's space helmets, and know that their method can work with startling efficiency. They were banned for that. Currently, because Carton7 had quit, and because Jimison's big relic is considered a fake, mine is the last one that is still collectible, according to many of the members of Blobtopia. Ever since all the nonsense happened between the collector, me, the pig relic, and my guild, I've kept it on my Raspberry profile, my solo normal profile. It's been in a beautiful armor set with bank-worn stereo pants and 2/4 lapis armor, all dyed pink to be a beautiful, beautiful piggy bank set. It is still on my Skype crypt, and anyone can check it out. My APIs will always be open, and it will never move from that slot. Thanks guys for watching this video. It means a lot to me. I'm glad you could listen to my sad, somber story of my beautiful little pig relic. And if you like and subscribe, you're guaranteed to get a shiny relic when they come back around. I'm going to be making more videos to do with some of the drama that I was involved with, as well as more videos in depth on my exact strategies with shiny pigs and how to actually obtain a relic and how I effectively guaranteed it.